So let's go on ahead and get started. Um, I am here today. This is Conversations with the Juicy Crone Nation, and I am here with my fellow Juicy Crone, Susan. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Jennifer Rose.
Hi, hi. Okay, so let me just do a quick intro before we get into the meat of our project here. So I am conducting this project, which is very interesting to me. And the reason I'm doing this project, what would you tell your 20-year-old self? That's the name of the project. The reason I'm doing the project is number one, I know that there's a lot of wisdom out there in our community, and I'm very interested in sharing that wisdom. I'm very interested in creating a way that we can partake in the wisdom. So that's the first reason. The second reason I'm doing this project is because whoever I interview, that's you, Susan, you get this beautiful opportunity to go to time travel and to go back to your 20-year-old self and see if there's anything you want to tell her. Like you get to like really contemplate and think, what do I want to tell my 20-year-old self? And as you contemplate that, you can also forgive yourself for not knowing then what you know now. Like it's so important to have that capacity and that opportunity to forgive yourself. Like I just didn't know then what I know now. And I forgive my 20-year-old self. So that is the second reason, or actually it was the third. Anyways, the one of the three other reasons, so this is going to be the last one for now, is that for the participant, the you, Susan, you really get to know what you know. I mean, it's a beautiful opportunity to really like take a moment or two or three or maybe a week, a day, however long it takes to really get clear on what do I know? I'm a juicy crone, or I'm a certain age. I've lived so many years on this earth. Up to now, what do I know? Let me get clear. Let me embody it. Let me know what I know. So that's why I'm doing this project. I wanted to thank you for participating in this with me. And I'm just going to throw out the question, my darling friend. Oh, Susan, I forgot I was going to introduce you. Like so busy introducing the project. My darling friend Susan and I know each other. We started doing teacher training in 2015 together. That's yoga teacher training. And we fell in love with each other. We fell in love with the sutras together. We fell in love with the Bhagavad Gita together. We deepened our spiritual practice together. And then we continued on with our friendship and our practice. And we did a program together, which we created among colleagues and peers. We did the Artist's Way, which we loved. I still use what we learned in the Artist's Way today during that group study that we did. So this is my compatriot, my compadre in living a spiritual life. So Susan, my friend, take it away. What would you tell your 20-year-old self? I know. I'm sorry I talked so much. Now it's your turn.
That's great. I love it because I'm sort of calming myself while you're talking. It's funny to get nervous about these little things. So a couple of things came up when you were speaking. A number of things did, of course, but you coined the word in my mind. For me, we say compadre, but maybe we're comadres.
Oh, yeah.
We can
Right.
not a word I hear, but I'm not against compadre, but I thought, oh, we're also comadres, so that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
A wonderful thing I remembered, and it's interesting that we forget or we just don't give ourselves credit for, if you will, is remember when we got out of teacher training that we decided we wanted to teach. And
Yes.
we experimented as co-teachers in teaching asana practice, and we learned a lot about ourselves and each other and teaching from that experience. But then when we settled into that co-facilitating the Sunday morning meditations. And what a joy that was, Jennifer
Hmm.
Rose. And don't you just sometimes forget that we did that and how valuable that time was for us and for those who came and joined us. So that's a sacred memory for sure.
Thank you for reminding me about that. During our teacher training, we fell in love with meditation. And after we got out of our training, we wanted to continue our practice because we loved it so much that we did co-teach that meditation class. Yeah, Sunday mornings. Thank you for reminding me of that. I
Yeah.
loved it.
And
Yeah.
the value of co-teaching and just what doing that is. And we actually spread it out that there were two others,
Hmm.
Liz and Crystal. And so just a wonderful experience of taking on a responsibility, but not so much that it was only yours and, oh, it's me, I have to do this, that just the value of being able to both be a teacher and then have your weeks when you were just the participant. And so, yeah, all of that. And so let's keep that percolating in our minds because you do forget, I forgot about it until you were talking about it. The artist way I will bring in, because one of the things I was going to perhaps offer uh, to my 20-year-old self would be the value that I learned of the morning pages.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
even though I still don't do them regularly now, I do think about them regularly. I wake up as if I'm going to do my morning pages. And so I kind of do them shorthand in my mind.
Hmm.
And because of the value I got out of actually doing the two or three, I think. I never really made it to 3 pages. I write small on Leak. That was 2 pages of that was anybody else's 3 pages. But I got a lot out of that in sorting out my thoughts, turning it
Hmm.
sometimes into prayer, problem solving, all of that. It was such a valuable tool. And so I'm glad you brought that up because now I've said it also in the context of offering that to my 20-year-old self. And that book was around, I think we celebrated 25th anniversary. Use it back then. I didn't use it 25 years ago. Well, that would have been not my 20-year-old self. I'm 65, by the way.
Oh, okay.
It's supposed to be a big, hairy deal. I love I love that I was born in 1955. It's just such a cool year. That was the Barbie doll, the first McDonald's, the Urantia
Yeah.
book was published that year. I mean, there's a whole bunch, the 55 T-birds. I mean, it's like a cool year to be born.
Yeah.
And then and then 65, of course, the biggest thing that's going on with that is you become eligible for Medicare.
Hmm.
And because I didn't hold jobs that always had wonderful healthcare benefits, I either opted out for them or it wasn't really a big deal. It costs, and I don't go to the doctor per se, but because 65 kicked in those benefits, it brought up all these kind of things, body issues and that, and I'll tie it in to the significance here. And I heard you say in another interview about I would have told her to wear sunscreen. I might have told her just to be very grateful for and stay on top of not so much the skin issues for me because I'm a sun freak, but things like the hearing, the dental, the eyes, any kind of
Mm.
self-maintenance things that we take for granted. And I'll segue that into the word moderation
Mm.
and the value of that to a 20-year-old, which she probably doesn't want to hear it. And so, you learn from experience, um, and with moderation, I would have found a way to tell her about delayed gratification.
Hmm. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more? Like, what do you mean when you say?
Well, by that I mean is that because we're so driven, we've got so much energy, we don't have the balance necessarily at 20 of wisdom or just, you know, whatever we have gained. It seems like we have to fix something right now, or
Mm-hmm.
we have to feed it right now. And there aren't those repercussions necessarily to a 20-year-old that there might be to a 60-year-old, the overeating or perhaps
Mhm.
that extra glass of wine or all that. You can't, at that point, your body pretty much can take it. Your mind can take it. It doesn't have immediate negative, we'll call it, effects. And so that doesn't mean that starting out habits at age 20 that would be very beneficial to you at age, let's say 65, if I would have known that then,
Mhm.
not just this, oh, you shouldn't do it kind of way, but a truly wizened way that you would go, wow, as a 20-year-old, that actually makes sense and I can relate to that.
Mhm.
So that takes me into where I actually put on my big, this is my notes. This is how much I have to say in the next 2 minutes.
Don't worry. Take your time. Take your time.
No. And so it's sort of like at the very bottom of the page got me to this one thing, which sort of goes like, well, I know who I was at 20 years old. I wouldn't have listened to me anyway. And I didn't. I didn't
Yeah.
listen to, let's say, my parents or my this or my that, whoever they were, right, telling me these
Yeah.
things. So what that brought me to, Jennifer Rose, was what if we could learn, even that young, how to communicate with others in such a way that disarms them from resisting us? And I have begun to
Hmm.
learn that now. I do know in practice, and those of us who are older, it's like, well, you learn that if you say something a certain way to somebody, you're basically going to either work your way into a helpful communication for both of you, and how you say it is going to set the stage, is how much
Mhm.
more is this communication going to be able to develop. So we're developing not only the communication skills, but we're also developing the relationship.
Mhm.
So how the value of, I think there's this meme that, isn't it more important to be happy than be right or something? So it's
Mhm.
it's like, isn't the relationship worth more than you making your point, Miss Susan?
Hmm.
And so if I could have been able to communicate to my 20-year-old self the value of how to communicate, and that also takes
Yeah.
us into this wonderful tool that many of us are learning and are learning to practice, is the art of sacred listening.
Mhm.
That that
Mhm.
the gift of what listening is so much more valuable perhaps than knowing how to state your piece. And so it all just kind of rolls into this bundle of this whole thing about communication, good communication, valuable communication. But why I'm bringing it into the 20-year-old self is how to not get that other person to listen, but how to allow, encourage that what you're to communicate in ways that are receivable.
Yeah.
You've got Eli. I would guess with your son, like, that if you say something, he's already got one ear turned off. I mean, because you're his mom. I mean, he's an
Yeah.
exceptional child, so I think he probably listens more than some. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. So, how to communicate, that's pretty much what I wanted to say about that
So
piece.
that's so interesting, Susan. It almost makes me want to know what your birthday is, like to kind of like see if that's like um, an
Yeah, well,
astro.
I'm Taurus on the cusp. I'm 423, April
Uh-huh.
23rd. Yeah.
Like for me, when I was 20, and sometimes even now, I want to communicate in an incendiary way or in a sparking way, in a way that creates something energy. Maybe it's conflict or not conflict, but it's so interesting. Like, as you would tell your 20-year-old self, like, just kind of be aware of what you want to create with your relationship.
Hmm.
Do you want to create more fire and more strife and more conflict? Or do you want to be more at peace and calmness and a clear communication. So like even if the 20-year-old self knows how to go into a relationship or go into a communication, sort of like setting the goal of what they want.
And being aware, I'll dovetail on that, being aware of the ways that you do that.
Exactly.
It's that consciousness that we learned from perhaps the Kundalinis are very aware of the position of your body, how you breathe, how you present yourself, how you hold yourself, all conveys these things.
Yeah.
I can say,
Yeah.
oh, I really want to get to know you, in but what I really am, my thing is so that I can get you to buy my product, or I have, all this agenda. So, it's the how, and being
Mm-hmm.
aware of all these minutia without going crazy, without being so self-conscious that it's fake, or, that you don't really know what you're doing. You just think you know what you're doing. So yeah, it's a wonderful art form, the art of living, I guess we would call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
To realize that the art of communicating and the art of living. So I love that sacred listening, because it really
Mm-hmm.
places on listening the value of what that is. And so that's something I wish I would have, I didn't know anything about that, I don't think, as a 20-year-old. So,
You know what,
um,
Susan? During this project, I've interviewed several different generations of women, and I was born in '65. You were born in '55, so it's almost like the women they're now about um, in their 40s or even a little bit younger. There was more even in those 20 years difference in popular culture, where that language was more available, of
hmm,
listening and communication, and it was more available, and it was more kind of swirling around, so that truth students like you and I would have bumped into it more easily. And there weren't the mentors. um, the mentors were few and far between. There wasn't the internet. I couldn't get on the internet and watch Eckhart Tolle. I didn't have my Course in Miracles group. I was just kind of like figuring out on my own. So I kind of wanted to just give that sort of generational perspective.
context, yes. And then
Yeah.
remember that, with my parents and my grandparents, things were not talked about. They were
Yeah.
buried. They were
Yeah.
conscious. I don't know if they were conscious of it, but they were unconsciously, consciously burying things. So I was raised by, okay parents, wonderful people, but not great parenting skills, especially in this area. That we did not talk about this stuff.
Right. Right.
And so, yeah, the tools were not there. They were maybe just beginning, but hardly. They were not there at all. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good point to make. But Jennifer, this is good, because I was thinking earlier, like when I brought up this, would the 20-year-old have listened? Some stuff was out there, and
Okay. Hold.
is this like maturing? Like you can't teach a toddler
Yes.
to fine
Yes.
motor things, or those kind of things. So I wonder just what these skills are at different stages, and we all had to study and have experienced enough to know. I
Hmm.
remember you saying in your intro to an interview that one of the things that you grew up with was this: when I get to be 30, it will.
Yeah.
And I use that as well. I believe that I felt a shift in myself at age 30, and
Hmm.
more than likely we feel those shifts in age 40, and so on and so forth. So there is only a certain amount of stuff, if you will, that we can embrace, because we don't have the scaffolding for it. So
Yeah.
even if it was there, I don't know what we would have done with it. But still, as you know, so much of what we do is seed planting. This is another big thing. When you share
Oh,
something, you
yeah.
don't expect it to be a 10-foot tall plant the day after you shared it. We share things as seeds. And
Hmm.
so, the seed sowing of things at 20, maybe we didn't get it then, but at least that seed would have been planted in us by somebody or something.
I love that analogy, because that kind of goes along with what you would tell your 20-year-old self, of like, the delayed gratification, and which, you know, it's just like patience. Like, you just to have patience that things are going to grow, things are going to work out, it's going to get easier. And little things, you know, just even those little ideas to the 20-year-old self, like, whatever, are helpful. That's what I wanted to say. Even those simple ideas, it doesn't have to be like deep or, you know, our intellect takes us on the mystical path to consciousness. And for the 20-year-old self, it doesn't have to be complicated. Hey, it's
Right.
going to get easier. Hey,
Right.
that seed will grow. Hey, don't worry, it's all going to work out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that. What I just wanted to go back to, um, what I find so beautiful about having some maturity and living some years on this earth is that I still feel the energy of like my 20-year-old self, like a little bit reckless, a little bit fiery, a little just felt like, but I don't care. I just want to go out in the sun and just burn myself to a crisp. I don't give a damn. Like, I still feel that energy, and it's exciting, and it's inspiring, and it's electrifying. But then I still have this other mature aspect that's just like, okay, that's a that's an idea, but what about if we just apply a little bit of moderation to it?
Yes, and of course there's the balance word. That's
Yeah,
absolutely it. So
yeah.
I'm flooded with a bunch of thoughts on this. I'll try to be concise and get some of them out. So I meet with a group of women on Monday, or it used to be Monday, it's Tuesday mornings now, and
Mm.
they are mutual friends of one friend. And so what we did, we added another meeting because some of them were missing in between. Once a week wasn't enough, so we threw in an extra meeting. And the theme of that was, who did you have a crush on? What musician did you have a crush on? What was your favorite concert? And we grew up in the 60s and 70s, and man, there were some stories
Oh
coming
my
down.
God.
And we were like, I mean, these women would like wait backstage. They'd all but climb up on the stage to get at these performers. And then we talked about music. And my friend who fosters this meeting just bought herself a new old LP player. So she's
Mm-hmm.
playing her albums. She's 62 years old. And it's just so, when you said that, and we're just like gleeful. Here's this
Mm-hmm.
women of Crohn's who are just like reliving
Mm-hmm.
our past, and it's okay. You know, it's really okay. So that's one piece. The second was some of this, and in my notes here, I wanted somehow to get here. So now we're here. What our concept of, I'm going to say the word God,
Mm-hmm.
the higher power, creator, whatever is, influences how we receive information that's good for us. Because try to say it this way: is it coming from someone who is just always all embracing, all wise, all loving? You absolutely know they've got your best interest, and they're wiser than wise because they're as old as eternity.
Mm-hmm.
But that contrast that kind of love and direction with the Ten Commandments, or
Mm-hmm.
you need to do this because if you don't, you'll burn in hell, kind of a thing. So it's really, again, goes back to the, I know this isn't good for me, but it's also okay because essentially it's good because I'm having the experience of it.
Yeah.
You know, the
Mm-hmm.
experiential supreme mother God, the God the supreme, that God who says, in this larger umbrella, you will learn something from it. And so you're not going to need lashes or confession, lashes meaning whipping
Right,
lashes,
right.
or, you know, confession or that, because I know that you're going to learn, and you're going to learn off on that little sidetrack path. So it really does, you sit with this, all of this stuff that we're talking about under, who is God and what do I believe and how does that affect everything?
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you, Susan. I think that was I'm so glad you got to weave that in. Um, that would be like a whole nother conversation. Like, what is your concept of God and how has
Hmm.
it changed and matured and how has it assisted you or not assisted you, your belief in what creator is. Um, but I think we'll just leave it on that note. I've had so much fun and inspiration chatting with you about what you would tell your 20-year-old self. And that conversation about rock concerts and music sounds really fun. Sounds like so much fun. So I think we'll just leave it at that, my friend. Thank you so much. And we'll just say goodbye to everyone watching. Bye.
Thank you, Jennifer Rose. It
Thank
was fun,
you,
of
my
course.
darling.